want to show some of the features that you can use on DESMOS.com. It is a fantastic math resource, and I believe you can sign up for a free account. I know I didn't pay for one. I want to show how you can actually create some of your own activities. They have a ton of activities already created, but I had someone that was asking about if students could graph and be able to, for a teacher to be able to view their students' graphs. So I want to show how you could create something and view your students' graphing. So I'm going to go here to custom, and I'm going to make a new activity. This is going to be graphing linear equations. All right, so it brings you here, which is a place where you can create a bunch of different types of slides. The slides will be populating up here across the top. Sometimes they start, if you go through some of the activities, you'll see they start with kind of like an opening question. I'm just going to kind of dive right in here, and I'm going to ask them to think about identifying the slope and the y-intercept in an equation, because in order to graph an equation, you have to be able to identify those. So I'm just going to say identify, this is where I'm typing my directions, identify the slope and y-intercept for each equation. Okay, and then I have all these options over here for different things that I can insert here. And what I'm going to insert is a table. So it gives me a two column table right away, but you can just click somewhere, maybe it's right here. There we go. Click that little triangle and then insert an additional column. So I'm going to be giving them an equation, and then I'm going to ask them to find the slope for me and the y-intercept. These locks mean that the students aren't going to be able to edit what's in this cell. And if you wanted them to be able to edit what was in that cell, you'd have to change that. So I'm going to give them some equations here. All right, and then they will fill in the slope and the y-intercept. So that's my first question on my DESMOS activity. And if you click preview, it'll show you what it'll look like for the students. So the students will see this, and they will simply come over here and type in the slope and type in the y-intercept. All right, I'm going to go ahead and hit this plus sign so I can add an additional activity to my DESMOS activity here. And for this activity, I'm going to ask them to compare two student answers. So I'm going to say Marshall says the graph below has a slope of 4. Tanya says the graph has a slope of 1/4. You guys all know where I'm going with this. If you teach algebra at all, who is correct? Explain. So again, those are my directions, and then I need to come over here and see what type of thing I need. Well, I actually need two things. I need a graph. It says, Marshall says the graph below, I need a graph. So I'm going to hit graph, and then I'm going to hit edit graph. And the wonderful thing is you can just come right over here and type what you want. So I'm going to do 1/4 x plus 3. I'm going to bump that over to the side, and then I'm going to hit done, and it's going to put that graph right in there for me. I also need a text box so my students can answer the question. You can choose for your students to see their classmates' responses, or you can uncheck that. I like for my students to see what other students said. And then remember, you can preview that. This is what the students will see when they come to complete this question. And they'll type their answers right here and then hit share with class. All right, I'm going to add something. Now we're going to actually have them graph something. Graph the equation y equals 3x plus 4 below. Include a point at the y-intercept and 2 additional points. All right, so then what we want them to have here is actually the graphing calculator. The other option would be Sketch, where you can customize your background with a graph. So that's a nice one to use too. So let's see what it would look like if we use this customize, and we'll customizable background. They would be able to insert points and lines. So put a point there. There's a point. I don't want the point there, though. I want the point to be at the y-intercept, which would be at 4. I told them to include 2 additional points, so they would have to rise 3, run 1, and then because of the amount of space I have here, they would have to go down 3 and left 1. And then they can enter their line as well. All right, so that's one option. The other option would be, I'm going to delete this and just show you another option, delete component. The other option is to give them a graphing calculator. So the difference here is they're not going to be able to put a line in unless they just type in the equation. But since I said include a point at the y-intercept and 2 additional points, they're going to have to actually physically come over here and type in. They're going to have to know the ordered pair. So the y-intercept at 0, 4, you can see it puts a point there. If you teach them, they could even label it as the y-intercept. And then they would need to put additional points in. So they would need to figure out, okay, there's also a point at 1, 7. Cannot see, there it is. Oh, that's not right. 1, wait, what? Oh, the scale. The scale is counting a little bit differently. It's not really counting by ones, which is why that looks a little strange. That could throw kids off, but you can change that. So you can click this little toolbox here, and you can decide what kind of grid you want. What do you want it to count by? So here I'm going to say that I want it to go by ones or whatever makes it look the best for what you want your students to be able to do. Okay, so that is right there. And then they would need to put a third point in, so they would have to go down 3 over 1, and that would be at -1. One, I believe. 1, 2, 3. Yep. Go. And you can see those points are all aligned with one another. The only way they'd be able to actually put the line in, though, would be if they put y equals 3x plus 4. And you could have them do that as well. There's nothing wrong with it. It shows their 3 going through their 3 points. All right. So I need to get rid of all this stuff because I don't want all these answers on their screens. I'm just kind of showing you here, but I really want that to just look like this. This is what it's going to look like for them. It's going to give them this spot here where they can type things in, and then it'll give them that graph as well. All right, I'm going to put one more type of question in here just to show you one other thing we could do here. Order the equations from least to greatest. Order the slopes of the equations from least to greatest. So that's going to be an ordered list here. So top label is going to be the smallest slope, and the bottom label is going to be the largest slope. And then I'm just going to put some equations in. So let's see. Like one that doesn't have anything with X. All right. So let's see what that will look like for the students. There you can see they'll have to drag the smallest slope up to the top and then continue dragging until they have those in order. All right. So when you have filled in all those slides that you want as part of your activity, then you're just going to hit publish. And you're able to share it with your students. So when you're ready to share it with your students, you just hit create class code, and they use this code here to complete the assignments. It's super cool. Here's the dashboard. I don't have any students signed in, but when you do have students signed in, you're able to You can view everyone's responses for each question. You can anonymize, which would mean you can't see student names, but if you wanted to put up an example on the board or cast it through Zoom or whatever, you would be able to do that. Pacing is awesome too, because if you want students to stop, like if I want students to stop after screen 2, or if I only want students to be able to see screen 1 and 2, then I can do that. So I can restrict to screens 1 and 2, and that's all they're able to see, which is great. I've seen some people sharing some examples where they made their warm-ups for the whole week on DESMOS, and then they just released 3 questions a day. So I might have 15 slides on here, and on Monday I release the first 3, and that's Monday's warm-up, and then on the next day I release the next 3, which I think is a great idea. Plus you can see, like I said, you can see their work here. So that would be a great way to do warm-ups if we are teaching remotely. All right, if you have any questions, let me know in the comments. And again, I thank you for watching.